Now, a picture may be worth 1,000 words or not, but I do know that our old family photos hold clues to our family history that we are missing. In this video, I'm going to show you how to ensure you are not missing family history clues in those old family photographs. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Lisa, a genealogy researcher and writer, and this YouTube channel is here to help you find your ancestors, grow your family tree, and not be overwhelmed in the process. So if it sounds like your cup of tea, you're in the right place. Now, I want to encourage you to take your old family photographs out of the closet and give them a second look. And specifically, I want you to take out those more candid photos. You know the ones, those more informal photographs that were taken at birthday parties, at family gatherings, those less than perfect photographs, shall we say. So why should we give these photographs a second look or a third look? They hold clues to family relationships, our ancestors' personalities, and even their socioeconomic status. We can see how they dressed. We can see what they ate. We can see what their house looks like. I'm going to turn the camera around so that you can watch over my shoulder and see how I evaluate an old family photograph for some of those hidden family history clues that you might be missing. Now I'm over here in Panga, the Panga platform, to show you how I would pull some clues out of this family photograph that we have. It is a fairly candid, it is posed obviously, but it was taken by someone at the family reunion and not necessarily in a studio. So I wanted to kind of show you some of the things that I personally look for and look at when I am evaluating a photograph for other clues. So obviously the first and foremost thing I would do would be to identify everybody that I could. But what I'm really trying to find out here is some more clues. So what I can tell you, just a little bit of history. This was taken around 1946. It is out of Charlotte County, Virginia. And the woman over here on the right is your left is my grandmother. You can see I've put that in there here. And this is her mother right here. This is my great-grandmother, Winnie Carr. And these are all Haley relatives. So what I'm looking at here when it comes to this is obviously a family reunion. It was, I'm looking first and foremost at this table. Now, unfortunately, the table is fairly washed out, but I do like to think about what could be in these foods here. I have there's the crock. So I would made a note to myself to ask other people, in the family, what's in these crocks? Do we know? Is it water? Oftentimes it was water for these big family reunions if there was no water in the house. So I'm looking at the food. So there's not a whole lot there that I can see. I am seeing people are fairly dressed up. I'm looking to see what time of year it was. There's still some leaves on the trees. So that gives me an indication, probably spring. It looks like based on how they're dressed. And then I'm looking at, for this particular one, I'm really looking at the individual people. And what I'm seeing over here is my great-grandmother. And whenever I see her, she is always smiling. And almost every photo I've ever seen of her, she is smiling. And it kind of gives me a sense of who she is. But if you look over here at my grandmother, let me get that out of the way. On the woman on this far left here. So this is my grandmother, whom I knew quite well into her 90s. And her early photos, all typically, she has this particular look. She has her arms crossed. She looks, if not angry, just kind of closed in. And so it makes me a little bit wonder about what her demeanor was as a young woman. I know what it was as an older woman, obviously, but what was her demeanor as a young woman? Was it really tough for her? Was motherhood tough for her? So I see that and I pick that up from here. And that would be something I would explore in other photographs and other memories from other people as well. So I'm looking at these expressions. I see, this is obviously a Haley cousin. She's got that same smile. She's back there smiling as well. And you can see everybody's kind of enjoying themselves. And unfortunately, my grandmother's not quite so much there. So that's what I would actually pull out of this particular photograph. So here's another photograph that has some interesting things that we can pull out of it. This is actually the back of a house. This is the back of the Talbot house in outside of South Boston, Virginia, probably in the 1920s, I'm guessing. But when I look at this photograph, it doesn't, my first thought was, oh, okay, it's the back of the house. And I really didn't go much into it. But when I really started to look at it, there's some clues here that we can definitely find. So the first thing is we get to see what the house looks like. Obviously, it's a 2-story house with a back porch. We know that they raise chickens, very common, obviously, for that kind of thing. This was actually the cellar for the cold storage that they had. And when I zoom in on them, I can move around a little bit more. So we have a wash bucket here. This is where they were doing laundry. Look, here's the pump. So the women in their skirts, they were having to pump water here to get the water. So it gives us an idea of what, life, housekeeping, cooking, it was kind of tough, quite frankly. So one of the descendants was able to tell me that this was actually the kitchen here on the left. So that was an interesting piece of the puzzle to get. We also see a gentleman over here kind of walking off to the side. It looks like he's probably in some type of uniform, military uniform perhaps. And then, of course, the horse. So it gives us an idea of, for the women, what life was like. Okay. It wasn't necessarily easy. The cold storage was outside. They're washing outside. The pump, the water is outside. The chickens are here. You look around, you can't tell a ton from the terrain, but we can see the landscape is fairly flat at this point. We've got some trees in the background type thing. So we can see, they have 3 fireplaces throughout the house. So we know that although this one is probably for the kitchen. So we know, that's how they were warming the house. So we get that kind of interesting look about the house and what was happening. So this kind of gave me just a unique view of perhaps what the women were doing and how they were having to go about part of their daily life. And that's certainly a valuable piece of information as I pull together my family stories. And you can do the same thing with your family photos. You're not going to get all this time, like, okay, there is, great uncle so-and-so, but you can start to look and think, okay, wow, let's look at this house. Think about what it is for me to go cook a meal and then what it was for my ancestors to go cook a meal. Think through that process. And I think you'll find some fun things to go as well. I hope you found those examples helpful. So when you are looking at your old family photographs, whether they're the formal portraits, whether they're the candid photographs we've been looking at, make sure you are looking beyond just the faces for those other clues. Read their body language. Look at the buildings behind them. Look at the food on the table. Look at the terrain behind them, the landscaping, the types of trees, the types of plants that are growing. Do you see a house number or a street name? So consider what each part of that photograph is telling you about your ancestors and individual and your family as a whole. Now, if you want to learn more about old family photographs, watch the video on your screen, how to identify who is in that family photo. But you'll find next steps there.